A federal judge has temporarily blocked Trump's executive order that ends birthright citizenship for 14 days, saying it violates the Constitution.
With the ceasefire deadline only days away, Israel reportedly asked for more time for its troops to withdraw from Lebanon.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked U.S. President Donald Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. The order was signed among a slew of other orders on Inauguration Day. Trump's administration argues that children born in the United States to non-citizen parents are not subject to U.S. jurisdiction. U.S. District Judge John Kuhnauer says the order was so blatantly unconstitutional and blocked it for 14 days. The decision came during the first hearing in a multi-state effort challenging the order, and the ruling was welcomed.
This is fairly simple. This has been expressly determined by the United States Supreme Court, and Congress and multiple executives have looked at it and agreed. And so I was not surprised to see Judge Kuhnauer sort of dismiss the absurdity of the order and the absurdity of the president's action.
So we're in a good place.
Immigration attorneys believe Trump wants to end birthright citizenship as a possible deterrent for illegal migration. They say that the order, even if passed, will not affect immigration.
There's so much economic opportunity and freedom that's available in the United States. That's such a pull factor for immigrants around the world that they can hope for their children to have a better life in the United States, whether or not those children are U.S. citizens. I'm not sure that birthright citizenship is a big factor in many people's minds when they decide to migrate.
The 47th U.S. president is persistent and has vowed to fight the judge's ruling.
Mr. President, a U.S. judge temporarily blocks the birthright citizenship order. Do you have any reaction?
No, obviously we'll appeal it. They put it before a certain judge in Seattle, I guess, right? And there's no surprises with that judge.
If the order is deemed a constitutional change, it'll likely be a very lengthy process to reform. Any constitutional changes in the United States must be agreed upon by 3/4 of all states and then approved by 2/3 of both chambers of Congress, the House and the Senate.
In a much anticipated video address, the US President Donald Trump told the WEF annual meeting that the golden age of America has begun, calling the first hours and the first days of his second term, quote, a revolution of common sense. He dedicated much of his speech to an ultimatum for global businesses, saying, invest in the US or face tariffs.
My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt.
Donald Trump specifically targeted Europe, claiming it is treating the US, quote, unfairly when it comes to exporting the EU goods to America, but not accepting the US products in Europe, also claiming that the regulation processes are taking too much time. Addressing the WEF annual meeting just a few days ago, the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that the new era of harsh geostrategic competition has begun and the EU will be pragmatic to protect its interests. I asked the former European Commission President, José Manuel Barroso, whether Trump's return to the White House is a wake-up call for Europe.
I think this new administration in the United States can be, to some extent, a wake-up call for Europe to see what we can do also more efficiently with our economy. The reality is that the European economy is not going well. While there was a progress in many areas in terms of the European integration in the last years, the economy is not going well. I mean, the Draghi report highlights very clearly some problems with the European economy. So my point is the following. Instead of the Europeans criticizing others, that's sometimes very nice to do, we should do our homework.
Donald Trump has also called on OPEC to push down global oil prices, saying the price now is high enough that the war will continue, referring to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. He said, "You got to bring down the oil price. That will end that war." Sasha Vakulina for Euronews from Davos.
Israel reportedly asked the US for a further 30 days to withdraw from southern Lebanon, only days ahead of the 60-day deadline stipulated in the ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah. The news comes as Israel claims the terms of the ceasefire with Hezbollah were not being implemented quickly enough. Meanwhile, the Iran-backed militant group called for increased pressure to ensure Israeli forces withdraw by Monday, as outlined in the agreement. The deal requires Israeli troops to withdraw from southern Lebanon, for Hezbollah to remove fighters and weapons from the area, and that Lebanese troops deploy in the region. However, Israel claims that the Lebanese army has deployed too slowly and that they continue to find Hezbollah weapons caches. Hezbollah said in a statement that Israel postponing its withdrawal would be unacceptable and an infringement on Lebanese sovereignty.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte urged Ukraine's Western allies to enhance their support towards Kyiv and backed US President Donald Trump's push for increasing the defense budget. Europe's defense budget is currently on average 2%. Rutte agreed with Trump and said there should be much more. Speaking at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos, he added that the European defense industry is innovating too slowly and that the focus should be on establishing an industrial base.
It has to be much more. I think Donald Trump is right here that we are spending not enough, and anyway we have to get it into a balance with what the US is spending. But particularly here we have to look out for the industry base. So what our defense industry is producing, and they are not producing enough, but also in terms of innovation, we are too slow in innovating.
The NATO chief also warned that a Russian victory over Ukraine would damage the alliance's credibility and that it could potentially cost trillions to restore. Speaking on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said a minimum of 200,000 troops are required to ensure Ukraine's security in the case of a ceasefire with Russia.
Should the EU fund hard borders? This is the topic that was at the heart of the debate at the European Parliament on Thursday. The issue has been discussed many times in the past. The EU's Commission position is that it does not provide financial assistance for the construction of barriers or fences, although it can fund border protection capabilities and infrastructure, such as cameras and surveillance systems. With migration back on the agenda due to the hybrid attacks by Russia and Belarus on the European borders and elections in many member states, the debate is back.
I think it would be more than needed to have certain investments coming from the EU side, because it's very expensive. The countries having a border with those aggressive states, they simply overspend their budget protecting other member states. So that's why it should be a sense of solidarity, like in case of accepting refugees.
But for many MEPs, funding fences and walls symbolizes a change in the EU's identity.
We strongly oppose EU financiation for fences in the external borders of the European Union. We understand that there are borders and they are to be protected, but fairly and in a good balance, not only strengthening external borders, but also cooperating fairly with countries in transit of origin, opening up legal pathways, and of course understanding the EU commitment to fundamental rights and human rights, which are also to protect migrants and asylum seekers for that matter.
Many member states, such as Poland, have recently switched opinion and now support the idea of funding barriers. With the change in composition of the European Parliament towards the far right, the decision to approve financing hard borders now seems more likely.
The French-made Spanish-language Emilia Perez dominated this year's Oscar nominations, leading the pack with 13 nominations.
Are you English? No, I'm not English. Why? No, because you...
The film set an Oscar record for a non-English language film, and its leading actress, Carla Sofia Gascon, became the first openly transgender performer to be nominated in her category.
Something has changed within me.
Another musical, Wicked, also scored big with 10 nominations, including for Best Picture and both actress categories for its stars Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Other expected leading nominees include The Brutalist, Anora, Conclave, and A Complete Unknown.
Go find someone else, I'm not a trophy wife.
You're gonna ruin your life if you don't marry me.
The Apprentice, one of the year's more audacious films dramatizing the formative years of President Donald Trump, landed a more surprising pair of nominations for its leading actors, Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong. In the directing category, the Substance filmmaker Coralie Farja managed to crack into an otherwise all-male group.
I'm fine.
With 5 weeks to go until the Oscar ceremony, at least 4 or 5 movies, including The Brutalist, Emilia Perez, Anora, Conclave, and Wicked, are seen having a shot at Best Picture.